Hi, I'm Emily Walker, Vice President of Advocacy with the Virginia Society of CPAs, and I'm joined today by Mark Peterson, who's the Executive Vice President for Advocacy at the AICPA, and Patrick Cushing, who is a partner with Williams Mullen and the VSCPA's Legislative Council. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Our goal today is just to give you a brief overview of what the recent election results mean for the CPA profession, both on the federal level and how that translates further into the state. So with that, I'm going to start off with you, Mark. And can you just talk to us a little bit about what the election results mean for the profession and our federal advocacy work?
No, sure. Thank you. It's still early. The smoke's kind of clearing. However, it's fairly obvious we're going to have a new administration. But I think interestingly, there was a pretty remarkable lack of change at the congressional level. We still have a runoff in Georgia that has to conclude in January, which will decide the majority of the Senate. But even if both of those seats swing to the Democrats, it's still a tied Senate with the vice president, presuming Kamala Harris, breaking ties. And then again, the Democrats maintain the majority in the House of Representatives, but Speaker Pelosi, who was just recently reelected Speaker, has a much narrower majority. So the Democrats are still going to have the gavel, and the gavel is very important as far as setting the agenda, but it makes it very unlikely there would be major legislative activity or packages like a major tax bill unless it's bipartisan. So anything that's going to be big, I would argue, would have to be bipartisan, because the margins are going to be so close in both the House and the Senate that, the idea of running through, for example, something as big as the ACA or something as big as the Trump tax package is unlikely, because you just don't see the votes there. Having said that, I think there's a lot of opportunity for bipartisan work on the tax side. I think that there will be tax activity. It's just, I think it's going to be smaller in size. So that's kind of where we are as it relates to tax. We're also, and again, this wouldn't have mattered regardless of the outcome of the election, we still are working through stimulus, the PPP packages that are working through in order to try and get some relief to businesses during the pandemic. And I think that activity will continue. On the audit side, we'll see. It's really personnel-less policy, so we have to see who the administration puts in at the SEC. We have to see, as they start to staff out, what their priorities are, and then we'll have a better sense of that.
Got it. So I know there were a few CPAs who were running for Congress. I mean, we had several incumbents, obviously, and then I know there were at least 2 additional new candidates for office. How did all of them fare in the election?
Right. I'll just say there's never enough running. Just to be clear, we can't catch up with the lawyers. But there were 3 retirements, 2 CPAs, both from Texas, Republicans, Mike Conaway and Bill Flores, and then 1 accountant, Senator Enzi from Wyoming, retired. There was also 1 loss. Colin Peterson from Minnesota, conservative Democrat. He's, kind of a folk hero in the agricultural community, plays in a country band. And that district he was in had really been transitioning to Republican. It was like a plus Republican, about 27 points. And so the reality was, as the demographic was changing on him, he was defeated. However, there is a new CPA that's coming in. A woman was elected, Victoria Sparks, in Indiana, and so she's going to be a new freshman. There was another woman that ran in Michigan against an incumbent who did not prevail. But at least, we're going to be back to 6 CPAs in the House and 1 senator in Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. Always could use more, but it is helpful that we're going to have 1 new one from Indiana.
Absolutely. Well, and I know, so Mike Conaway specifically was patroning a piece of legislation that we've been interested in. So I'm sure you're looking for a new champion for that issue.
Oh, absolutely. And all of the CPAs have been incredibly helpful in Congress, not just because they understand our issues, but their colleagues actually go to them to ask, financial services or tax questions. And so it's been a really good resource for the profession.
Right. Well, we certainly understand that. We, of course, had Senator Stosh here in Virginia for a
Yeah.
long time, and we now have Delegate Joe McNamara, and he's the only CPA in our legislature, so we certainly go to him for a lot. So do you see, you mentioned legislation related to PPP and some follow-up. Any other federal legislation related to COVID, specifically anything related to like liability protections? Because I know that that is a huge issue.
So, I mean, I think there's bipartisan agreement in the need for a next stimulus package, which could include things like a second round of PPP, hopefully deductibility of PPP. That's a big one we've been pushing. But there are other things in there, you know, another extension on unemployment, and you know, other things that would be included in that. The big debate is, how big is it? What's the size of that package? So if in fact they could come to some agreement on what the size is between the House and the Senate, Mitch McConnell, Republican leader of the Senate, and Speaker Pelosi in the House, I do think it'll move quickly. We're in lame duck session. There is going to be an opportunity to do it either as its own package, or maybe tie some elements of that to the budget bill that they have to get done to keep the government running after December 11th. So I think that's a not if, but when. It's either going to be in this lame duck session prior to the Christmas holiday, or it's going to be one of the packages when they get back January, February, that they will do it. It's really important that they do it in December, because there's a lot of year-end stuff that CPAs are trying to figure out, particularly related to that deductibility question. So we're pushing really hard on that. And I think there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity for it to happen. The politics, to be honest, is bigger than the parts of the package. And so they really do have to come to an agreement on, you know, the size, and then whether there's liability protection, or what's the size of the federal support for state and local. So it's kind of, there's three corners. One is, what's the size of the whole package? And then it's the tension between the Republicans pushing for liability and the Democrats looking for, you know, federal funding for state and local issues. Got
it. Okay. So I think we're going to pivot a little bit here and move more towards the state level. Patrick, what do you think the election results mean for Virginia moving forward as we're approaching our 2021 General Assembly session and even next year's gubernatorial and House elections?
Yeah, Emily, good question. And probably most folks know that we didn't have any real state elections in Virginia this year. So of course the focus is on 2021. You know, a couple of factors come into play for the 2021 elections. First of all, we have our statewide officers up for election: the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the attorney general, and then all 100 members of the House of Delegates. One of the interesting things to see based on the outcome of the election, and we were all waiting on this, is to see who else is definitely jumping into the gubernatorial race. I mean, there's a long list on both sides of the aisle of folks that are considering. There's a couple who are in. On the Republican side, you have former Speaker Kirk Cox, who is a retired teacher and has served in the House for over 20 years. And then Amanda Chase, a relatively new senator, whose brand is to be more Trump than Trump. And so that's an interesting dynamic there. And I think some of the speculation is, is there going to be somebody that moves maybe more to the middle of the Republican Party, maybe closer to the center? Will anybody like that appear? And of course, there's a couple of names out there. I know that, for example, Senator Emmett Hanger from Augusta County is weighing whether he's going to get in the race or not. So there's probably a little bit of a window there. I think the right side of the Republican Party is probably covered pretty well. There may be more entering, but the question is anybody going to come in closer to the center? You know, once the party chooses how they're going to nominate the gubernatorial candidate, that will also help shake things out, whether they choose a primary or a convention process that usually has an impact on what type of candidate would be successful in a given year.
For sure.
Yeah. And so then on the D side, Some wondered whether Terry McAuliffe would get in. He had kind of hinted that he was going to get in. Some thought he might be holding off for a Biden win and then maybe an appointment in the administration. Well, earlier this week or late last week, he said he's definitely in for governor. So he's coming into the race, and we've already got Delegate Jennifer Carroll Foy, a freshman Democrat, African-American woman who went to VMI. And then Senator Jen McClellan, another African-American woman here from the Richmond area, who's been in the Senate and served in the House prior to that. So that I would say that on the D side, those are probably the front runners. There's others who are thinking about it and looking to jump in, but I'd say that's probably the spread you're looking at on the D side. With the House of Delegates, right now we've got Democratic administration, we've got a Democratic House, Democratic Senate. The House is controlled 55-45 with D's in control. The big impact is really less about the election going into 2021 than it is going to be about the redistricting process.
Right.
So the 100 districts throughout the House are going to go through redistricting to make them all equal in population. And what that means with our population growth is you're going to see more districts move out of Southwest Virginia, out of South Side, into Virginia Beach, Central Virginia, and particularly Northern Virginia. So you might see some legislators lose their districts, and they're going to have to move to run again. But you're going to see that shift up to our urban crescent in the redistricting for the House, which would generally, I think, is going to favor the Democratic Party. But we'll see. I think a 55-45 place for the House right now with the Democrats is probably as good as they might be able to expect under this system, this current districting system. So be curious to see if they pick up any more with the redistricting.
Well, and of course, we just passed the constitutional amendment to create a redistricting commission as well. So that may impact the outcomes there also. Yeah.
Some of the stuff that's been gerrymandered, that'll get, those edges will get rounded a little bit, but you're still going to see that population shift up into Northern Virginia.
Sure. Well, Patrick, I also wanted to talk a little bit about the upcoming General Assembly session. We recently have found out that the Republicans are intending to limit the session to 30 days per our Constitution. So what effect do you think that's going to have on what we can expect to see happen over that short session?
Yeah, so short sessions are always tough for us on the lobbying side. It's the same amount of work, just we have 46 days instead of 60 days to do it. And so, just to kind of rephrase it a little bit, I wouldn't say that the Republicans have blocked anything. It's just been general practice that the General Assembly has extended their short sessions to 46 days from 30. I think it's going to very much curtail major initiatives with opposition. And I'm not even talking about opposition between Republicans and Democrats. I mean, there's plenty to fight about within just Democratic priorities. Those, things like paid family medical leave, legalization of recreational marijuana. I mean, those are two huge initiatives that there's contention even within the Democratic Party over how to do those. It's going to be a challenge to get those through, because when you look at a 4-week session, I mean, that's 4 weeks to get through subcommittee, committee, the full House, Senate subcommittee, Senate full committee, Senate, full chamber, and then the conference process. So we may only have 10 to 15 days for bills to be heard in the chamber of introduction. So we're not quite sure how it's going to play out. And of course, the virtual session, the House is going to be 100% virtual. The Senate will meet in the Science Museum, but we probably, the public and the lobbying community probably will not have access to the senators at the Science Museum. So we'll see.
So sounds like we're going to have an interesting next few weeks, next few months between both the the federal transitions that are going on and preparing for a lightning fast, short General Assembly session for us here in Virginia. So any last thoughts or remarks from either of you before we wrap this up?
Well, just from, the AICPA side, we really appreciate our partnership with the state societies, and the ability for us. I mean, when you think about this hyper partisan environment we're in, which is just the reality, whether you're at the federal level or the state level, the thing that breaks through that is actually the voice of constituents. And for us to be able to have the bookend of, them, at least on the federal side, for those members of the state delegations to hear it here, and then to have that backed up by the voice of the state societies and our CPAs that are in the congressional districts, it's the only way to be successful, because we do have to fight through a lot. And that partnership is invaluable, and we will be successful at a policy level. It's just gotten really hard to get things over the finish line. And that's likely to continue. It is just kind of the new normal. But we're set up to work with whomever is in charge, and our issues are not inherently partisan, and we're still hopeful for success. So thank you for your partnership.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, and I'll just pick up on that. I think Mark made a great couple of points there, and the constituent outreach is particularly critical in these short sessions where, for those members that are out there, if you see something come through either AICPA or VSCPA with Emily saying, hey, contact your legislator, that is so critical for what we do on the lobbying front. And it's a lot of the stuff that we do is not partisan. And in fact, a little over 2/3 of all bills that get introduced in the General Assembly that end up pass with a unanimous or only 1 or 2 no votes against it. So despite the hyper-partisanship on many, big issues, when it comes to the state level, there's a lot of work that needs to get done that just has to get done, and it's not partisan, and folks can agree on it. So that's probably coming out of this rather tumultuous election, that's probably the good thing to look at is the work that gets done in concert between the two parties.
I couldn't agree with both of you more. So thank you again. I really appreciate your time and your willingness to talk to our members about these important issues. And for our members, keep your eye open for the CPA Voice newsletter in your mailbox to keep you up to speed on all of the advocacy issues the profession is facing. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.